see me on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, I can see me. So, welcome. This is the technologically challenged Gotham Capital Improvements Program meeting. This is what, a fourth meeting, Danielle?
Mm-hmm.
I go fast and having fun. We're operating under, welcome, it's good to see everybody, either the images or a nondescript image on the screen. We're operating under the governor's emergency order that suspends or modifies many of the requirements of RSA 91A, the right to know law for meetings, which allows us to conduct our meeting electronically. Public has access to listen to the meeting. It is a meeting, not a hearing, so we will not be taking public comment. And then why don't you give out the meeting number and participant code for people who want to listen?
If you'd like to listen to the meeting through the telephone, the phone number is 603-766-5646. And the participant code is 785645, followed by the pound sign.
Okay, and for the benefit of the public, if there is a problem with your telephone access, you may call 660-5000. If we cannot fix it, we have to suspend the meeting. I hope that doesn't occur. We've already challenged Danielle enough setting up the meeting. Under the right to know of the emergency order, the modifications of the usual procedural rules are: one, we have to identify ourselves, and the statute requires to say if there's anybody else present with you. We've defined that as in the room. And we have to take votes by roll call, although I don't anticipate any votes. So before we start, let's introduce ourselves. We'll start with the committee members, starting with Kelly.
Hello, Kelly Boyer here, Select Board Rep, and there's nobody in the room with me.
Okay, Ellen.
Ellen Vermakowitz, representative from School Board.
Okay, is Jeff here yet? Or Gail? Okay, and I'm Jim Raymond, the chair, and from the planning board. Jane is out mowing the lawn, so she's not here yet. She'll probably wander through. Are there any other committee members on the call? Danielle? I think we've hit everybody. So let's have Danielle, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll have all the town staff introduce themselves.
Sure, I'm Danielle Basor. I'm the Finance Director and Assistant Town Administrator here in Goffstown. I'm the staff liaison for the committee, and we also have Joanne here.
Tell her to unmute herself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. Can you hear me? Okay. Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director, and there is no one in the room with me.
Okay. Well, who else in the staff was not a presenter? David?
Yep.
David's on mute.
Am I unmuted? Dave Pierce?
David Pierce is one of our presenters tonight,
Okay.
as well as Adam Jacobs from the Department of Public Works, our DPW Director. And Mike Yurgo is on the line as well from the Department of Public Works and Sewer.
Okay. Anybody else who's presenting we want to introduce now? Danielle?
There's no one else presenting tonight that we need to introduce. we are just trying to figure out, do we still have a quorum? Because we have 3 committee members out of 5, I believe. So I think we're okay.
Oh, no, we are, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Danielle, tell us what we're going to be hearing.
So tonight, we were going to start your agenda with the presentation from the Sewer Commission. So David Pierce will be describing the planned capital improvement projects that they have. That is on your matrix, page 4 out of 10, where you'll find their projects on the lower half of the page, starting on number 178, line number 178. And in the packet that we mailed out to you this week are the new updated sewer rehabilitation worksheets for each of the projects, where the commission has gone through and identified some of the projects, and David will be able to elaborate during his presentation. Are you ready to have him start?
Yes, David, want to launch us into this?
Okay, am I unmuted now?
You are.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You could hear him, and then his video just disappeared. So I think just give that 1 second.
Danielle, while you're doing that, will you tell us again what line we're starting at?
Yes, line 177. That's where the sewer commission projects begin.
David, you can be heard but not seen.
I had him connected a minute ago, but I think he might have an issue with his connection. Adam, are you still with us if we need to reverse orders and switch over to DPW?
Sure can.
No, do you want me to take Dave? Yes.
Is David back?
David's not back yet, but Mike was just saying that he could begin the presentation.
Okay, okay, Mike, why don't you do that?
Okay.
All right. Line 78 is the pump station rehabilitation that's scheduled for this year, and it's for the Elm Street addition to the pump station, and the possible force main replacement that's going to run from the Elm Street pump station up Elm Street to Cottage Street. And they have another option in the contract, whether or not to rehab the existing force main that runs from the Elm Street pump station to two people's yards, and which goes to Mill Street. So that is scheduled for this fall. Basically, the engineers are still working on some of the design, but hopefully this fall we can be able to do the construction. Any questions on that?
How is that paid for? Is that all paid for out of the impact fees
Yep.
or the sewer assessment?
That's paid out of the user fees and sewer impact fees.
Okay. So, Danielle, is there any tax impact to these expenditures?
There is not a tax impact with these projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the budget for the sewer commission all comes out of user fees and accessibility fees.
Okay.
No tax money at all.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to take a moment to point out on line 190 of your matrix, it shows you the sewer projects after the user fees. I am noticing one error on the matrix where year 2026 wasn't captured in the calculation. So that line 190 under column Q should be 0, just like the other years.
Okay,
And so I'll adjust the final matrix to reflect that calculation.
I think this matrix is a challenge in Excel workmanship.
Okay. So Mike, the next project you had on your agenda, were you going to continue talking about the 2020 projects, or did you want to jump into the 2021 forward?
We can jump into 2020.
Okay,
Want to do that?
sure.
All right, the 2021 sewer bill program. These sewer rehabilitations, you can see from that line all the way down to line 187. It's been on the. This has
Hold
been
on
on
one
the.
second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we just got a new caller in. I'm wondering if it might be Dave trying to connect.
No, it sounded like him.
Okay. So Dave Pierce is connected by the phone. Mike was just starting to tell us about the 2021 planned rehabilitation project.
This is Dave. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. Can the committee hear Dave on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm here.
Okay, are you ready for my presentation?
He's pretty garbled.
Yeah. The connection, it's hard to hear you. It's not coming through clearly.
Why don't we let him take us through these then, if David's not going to be there? And then we'll let David make comments afterwards, so at least have Mike continue to march us through it. I don't want to steal David's thunder, but it's garbled thunder. So.
Okay.
Hey, Mike?
Yeah. All right. 2021 is the Pershing Street Point repair. We have a broken pipe that needs to be repaired before DPW paves the road. Lewis Street, sewer replacement, 601 feet. That's been on the schedule for quite a while. What we did is we ended up taking these line items and broken them into phases because the sewer commission really didn't want to spend, a lot of money. So we kept the line items between, 500,000 and some 400,000 to about 700,000. So we broke this neighborhood. It's basically all the flats in Penaville that's going to get replaced. So with the construction costs that was higher than it's been in the past years, we decided to make all this project into phases. That's why you're going to see in 2022, Lewis Street is on for replacement. That'll be the second phase of the project on that street itself for that kind of money. Then you're going to see Albert Street line down, Higgins, Plymouth Street, and Higgins again. When you design these sewers, all these streets are all connected, so you have to change. If you do sewer replacement Higgins Street, then you have to do one of the side streets with it. So we broke this down, from a 3-year program. We ended up figuring them out to keep kind of like the cost estimate for CIP around the 500,000-600,000 range. You're going to see different ones that have multiple sites. That's basically with the source system we have. It's a 24/7 operation. We do have places where you might get a breakage in the line or something happens that's unexpectedly. So we do put money into that each year. So that way there, like this year, you see South Mass with some animals. The covers is going to have to be reset. That's what the the multiple sites are.
Hello, Danielle. Am I unmuted? This is Dave Pierce.
And that was clear.
Yes, we can hear you, Dave.
Thank you. I had connection problems and I switched from my cell phone to my house phone here. Yes, thank you for Jim at the CIP committee. I'm one of the three commissioners, and I appreciate Mike Yergel taking over. He's our man-on-the-spot technician that knows all the details about our infrastructure in town, and I'm just a policy guy trying to convince you to support our CIP.
A question for you, David. Are these just a normal replacement cycle or rehabilitation cycle? Are you responding to failures in these systems?
I'm going to. It's the systems that we're working on in the next 6 years are not failures, but the projects are undertaken to reduce the risk of a failure. As Mike may have explained, it's possible that tree roots might break a pipe or invade a pipe. There's a problem of sewer line dipping below what would otherwise be a consistent slope of a pipe. And in some cases, some of our sewer lines are far exceeding their useful life. Well, all three of those issues I just mentioned, if they're left unchecked, it increases the likelihood of a clogged pipe or broken sewer lines. We certainly don't want that. And customers are unhappy when their sewer system doesn't work, and there's a risk of us paying on insurance claims if a flow of a main line backs up into a home or a business. So
the question,
yes.
Ellen is the proponent of this, David, is are we deferring, by spreading these out over these years, are we deferring work that needs to be done sooner for budgetary reasons, or is this still a reasonable schedule to meet the, I'll call the performance needs of the sewer system as well as?
I'm going to say it's a normal schedule. All of the various lengths that Mike has put onto the 6 years of our plan, the streets of Pershing, Lewis, Albert, Higgins, Plummer, Brookline, those are all in Bernardville, basically west of Surratt Park and north of Mast Road. It's a very designed to rehabilitate that particular section of the town.
And you feel this is a prudent schedule to do it on while meeting the needs of the system to perform?
Yes, it's a prudent amount of work. All of those lengths add up to about just a little less than a mile of pipeline. For your information, we have 28 miles, more or less, of pipeline in this town, and this plan represents a replacement of just under a mile.
So we're on a 28-year long, or more than that. Now, to do these, you have to go through.
Yeah, well, this is 1 mile of pipeline over 6 years. Yes.
Multiply that.
And you know, if you step back, yes, if you just step back and look at the global reason for our sewer system, it's an urban infrastructure. It does have to be maintained. The sewer system is a critical role in public sanitation, in disease prevention, and so the most effective way of protecting the performance of that entire collection system is to do periodic maintenance and rehabilitation of the older lines and the lines that we're experiencing to be damaged by roots or settlement tips.
Okay. I don't want to beat this, but part of our goal is to make sure we want to even out tax burden and all that, but also make sure our capital needs are met when needed. And so we want to make sure that you're not deferring
Okay, well, I'll answer the, yes, we're not deferring more critical work, but this is a prudent amount of work to stay ahead of the risk of failure. And Jim, on another point, we are an enterprise fund, so the monies that we have and the fees that we collect are supporting the amount of expenditures that we wish for the capital improvements.
Ellen, have I properly characterized the questions that you would normally ask? I got ahead of you.
You're fine. My one question was, and thank you, Jim, am I understanding that in the course of the next 6 years, we're only going to do slightly less than 1 mile of pipe
That's correct.
for like $3 million? Wow. Thank you.
Kelly, do you have any questions? You're probably aware of all this already, but
Yeah, not on this one in particular. Thank you, though.
okay. Anybody else? Danielle, Joanne? You're part of this party, so, okay. Is there anything else for sewer? David and Mike, is that it?
Yes, those are the lengths of street that we have determined are most in need of replacement, and it's a 6-year plan. It's prudent, and will effectively keep our system performing as we want it to.
And we're concerned about all of those, but particularly the last of those statements. So we trust your judgment. Thank you.
Jim?
Yeah.
It's Ellen. One question. When this type of work is being done and the roads being dug up and all, does this work hand in hand with DPW for reclaiming or repaving roads at the same time?
The SOAR Commission is required to, let me back up one. Mike Yergel can certainly jump in when I'm through here because he has the experience of how we finish a road. But yes, basically, because the SOAR Commission is excavating a road, we're responsible for restoring the surface of the trench we're digging. There's unfortunately, we're working on East Union Street right now, and unfortunately that trench meant digging up the entire center of the road. So in that case, the entire road is being resurfaced, and that'll be a collaborative project between both departments.
Okay, so the work you do, it gets a patch on it. Does DPW then go and repair the rest of the road if it needs repairing?
Well, DPW would have to answer that.
Okay.
But yes, many of our projects do get dovetailed into planned street rehabilitation.
Okay, thank you.
Effectively, both the SOAR Commission and Public Works would then share in the final resurfacing of a road.
Thank you.
And is the short question, does the SOAR Commission and DPW work together on these? Do they coordinate?
The short answer is yes. They are very aware of what we're excavating and the planned things that are going to occur in the future.
Okay. Thank you. I'm reading an article on public health gains, or actually health gains, and the largest one over the last 150 years in gains of health is public health through good sewer systems. So it's a really important function in the health of the community. So we appreciate what you guys are doing. Okay, Danielle, what's next?
Okay, so if there are no other questions for the SOAR Commission, then next on the agenda is the Director of Public Works, Adam Jacobs, and he'll be coming online to tell you about both the DPW planned projects and the vehicle replacement schedule.
Do we ask him about what ride he's gonna give us and what piece of equipment to give us?
You probably don't want to ride in the back of the trash trailer that we've got up this year, I'm assuming. So maybe the 10-wheel dump truck, that's a good one.
Okay, meet you afterwards.
Okay. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Adam, are you starting with the vehicles or the projects?
I will start with the vehicles. CIP line 60 would be my first one.
Okay. That's on page 1 of the matrix, line 60. Oh, page 2 of the matrix.
Yep.
I apologize.
And if I could, Danielle, am I set up so I can share my screen?
One second.
Got a couple.
Sure.
Couple pictures for you, if that helps.
Presenter. Okay. And I believe now you should be able to share your screen, Adam.
All right. I should share this.
Okay.
Okay, so on your matrix, line 60, our first vehicle up, we have 3 vehicles scheduled for replacement in our 2021 CIP. Maybe just to take a step back, what we do in DPW is we try to slot out a little bit further than the CIP requires, just in order to try to level our expenditures, just because we have so much equipment that we maintain at DPW. So we do have a kind of a waterfall as you go through the years here. At least you're seeing the first 6 years. But in 2021, we've got 3 pieces of equipment. The first is what might look familiar from last year's CIP. It's DPW Vehicle 384, which is a 2002. Spec Tech is the brand. Trash trailer. It's a 100 cubic yard live floor. So what that means, it's got a hydraulically activated floor, so you can pack this with a compactor in the building. As it's connected here, you'll see it's pulled right up to the recycling building at the transfer station. So it's packed with a compactor inside, and the live floor allows that to pack towards the front of the trailer as it gets loaded. And then you can offload with hydraulics to get it back out. This gets hooked up to with our long haul tractor trailer truck, and it's one of 5 that we have frontline trash and recycling trailers. It was in the CIP last year. Big change. It was deferred just due to the level of funding in the budget. We had a few things that fell off the proposed list through the process, and this trailer, unfortunately, in the subsequent year has failed its overweight certification, which is performed by our mechanics here on site, but they're state inspection certified, and they go through all of our equipment. And the trash trailers are, in theory anyway, all overweight certified, which allows them to go up to, I think, 99,000 is the maximum weight for the New Hampshire highway system. And these trailers, when fully loaded of trash, which is slightly heavier than recycling, actually are in that overweight category. Due to some pretty good corrosion here, and maybe I can cycle through. Maybe not. Guess I don't have any of the underside. We've got some stress cracking on some of the members. There's some corrosion in the suspension system. Some of the live floor supporting pieces are failing and spreading apart. So we're starting to actually lose material through the live floor itself, which is never good. So anyway, this combination of mainly the frame damage, though, due to the age and the corrosion of the salted roads, as it has to be out pretty much, in any kind of weather, because the trash and recycling don't stop. It failed its overweight certification, so now it's been derated, which means that if it's used for, if you have eagle eyes, you can see looks like a Sharpie somebody wrote on the front end of this, used for recycling only. So if we're going to use this for trash, it can't be a full load. It has to tip the scales at less than that overweight cutoff. So right now it's been relegated to recycling only, which does hamper us a little bit, since we really like to be able to rotate these through. The first one full is on the back of the truck and sent down on the road. So it's good to be able to have the flexibility of any trailer can fit on any building. So that's our first vehicle. That estimated cost for this is $102,000, and our plan to dispose of the existing would be either a trade-in, probably on a new trailer, or auction it off. Vehicle number 2 is CIP line 61. and it is a 10-wheel dump truck. I gave you a sneak peek earlier. So this is a 2007. It's a Freightliner 10-wheel dump truck. It's got just over 12,000 hours on it. It's the largest truck that we have in our fleet, and as such, it typically runs almost every day in the summer construction season, back and forth to the job sites, hauled either coming with road gravel or returning with spoils and suitable material that needs to be either crushed or used in a different project, not on a roadway. So it's pretty heavy use throughout the year, and then of course in the winter it gets a plow and a wing, and it does duty there with snow removal. This truck has also got some, due to the age and the work cycle, it's got some pretty good stress cracking on the frame. I did have a picture of this. If you look at my screen here, you can maybe see my cursor right at these where these members meet the main frame of the truck. So this is what the entire dump body sits on. There's stress cracking at most of these frame sections. So really it's a matter of time for this piece that's been in heavy duty. The other thing that we tend to see with these over time, especially the 10-wheeler, because of the loads it gets, is the stainless steel bodies take a pretty good pounding, so that you can see it almost looks like it's been through a hailstorm, like you've read about there. The boulders that get dumped in, and then of course hit the sides of the stainless steel. Along this bottom edge of these sideboard areas has to be repaired. They've been not too long ago welded from the inside to be replated and re-strengthened, but really it is overdue. So as of 2007, with these trucks, I extended, when I was first into DPW, I extended our replacement schedules for most of our vehicles by a couple of years. I took, I think, the 6 and the 10-wheel trucks from a 7 or 8 year replacement cycle up to anywhere between 12 to 15 year cycle. You can run numbers that kind of show you your cost of ownership curves and kind of where those start to bend. And in the past, that's about the time frame in which you start to see costly repairs come down the pipe. So right now we're in that mode with these large trucks. So as a 13 years old, by the time if this makes it through the budget process and finally gets ordered and taken possession, we're going to be going on 15 years old by the time this truck goes out of service. So the full cost of these, they are fairly expensive, of course, the trucks themselves, but also then the bodies and the plow packages that get replaced, $220,000 for the entire setup. And then the outgoing truck is either a trade-in or an auction. Typically trade-in. The companies that sell us the trucks usually are the ones most willing to give us top dollar for them on trade. And our last vehicle, oops, here's another picture of the undercarriage. So this is my missing undercarriage shot from our trash trailer. You can see some pretty hefty corrosion going on here, of course, with some of the thinner steel, but also almost all the cross members, and then the main. This is the backside of what's called the fifth wheel hitch. So this is what area, this plate at the bottom here connects the trailer to the tractor trailer truck. So that's pretty well shot as well. Okay, so back to our third vehicle for 2021. It's as you can see, a wheeled excavator. It is a 2004 Volvo with just under 15,000 hours at this point. It is one of 2 wheeled excavators that we have in town. So normally construction season, we have at least 2 road building crews going, one excavator for each crew. The last couple of years, sporadically, we've been able to rent a smaller machine and get a mini third crew together. But sometimes it gets tough with staffing. So at the very least, we try to have 2 construction crews going every single day. We cycle through the operators, but the machines themselves run most days. This machine, kind of the same thing. We've extended the time frame a little bit on replacement of these, but repairs, especially to pieces of heavy equipment like loaders, backhoes, bulldozers, excavators, they tend to get very expensive very quick. We just received this back from some extensive maintenance to the tune of about $10,000 for some engine work and electrical work and gearing that had to happen. The vehicle, the machine has to stay out during the construction season, or else, we have, as we'll talk about soon, a couple $1 million worth of road work a year, Unfortunately, that doesn't just sit around waiting for the machine to get fixed. So if you start talking about rentals, it's becomes costly as well. So with the fact that we had to replace this in the next hopefully 12 to 18 months, and we do need to at least try to get some kind of return on our investment as well from a trade-in perspective. We do have to bite the bullet on some of those bigger maintenance items, but we don't want to be around necessarily for the next large bill on this machine either. So what I've done on these, the loader, the excavators, I like to look at something that's a late model. So either a year, 2, maybe 3, 4 years old, but with low hours. In this case, we're looking at a replacement machine that would have under 1,000 hours. We've budgeted $200,000, which is a lot of money, of course, but you can save tens of thousands of dollars if you're willing to look in the late used model price range. So try to maybe squeeze an extra vehicle every year, every other year out of the fact that we're willing to look for used equipment, which for our purposes hopefully can last us as long as we would have it if it was new. So that wraps up my 3 vehicles for the year. If anybody has any questions, I can take them now, or I can move on to the projects and field them all at the end if you like.
That's the trade-off. You buy used equipment, you're sacrificing some longevity versus a price gain. Most of us buy automobiles where we know that depreciation in new vehicles that occurs very quickly. Is it the same in equipment or comparable, so that the savings outweighs the loss of longevity?
Very similar, yes. So if you're willing to take what might be coming off of maybe a short-term rental situation that somebody had lined up, or a demo machine that might have been at a dealer somewhere, there's significant savings. Yep.
Thank you. Ellen or Ellie, do you have any questions on the vehicle, other than which one do we get the ride in?
Ellen's fine.
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I will jump on to projects then. So first one up would be, I believe, CIP line 160, which is the road plan.
Kelly, can you see this? You were on your phone last time, and you want to make sure you're giving you time to follow along.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, so I apologize. I tried to make the font as big as I could. This is what I've got up on the screen right now is just a snapshot. I'm getting a lot of feedback in my. Any chance you could mute Danielle? If I'm not sure who it might be, but I'm getting
What is this we're looking at, please?
stuff to hear. Sorry, Ellen, hold on one sec.
Okay.
I can hear now. Okay. All right. So thank you. So what I pulled up here is the snapshot of the 2020 road plan, just to kind of give you an idea. We haven't finalized the 2021 plan yet, and as part of that process, it's been a couple of years since we had a 5-year extended road plan stakeholder meeting, which then allows us to sort of signal to utilities, notably sewer and water and natural gas the last few years, signal to them what our intentions are, maybe get an idea from them. If they've got some things on the table they haven't put out publicly yet, we can kind of get those all at the table and readjust all of our schedules, hopefully to line up and make the most sense for taxpayers and ratepayers alike. So, but what we do have, I just want to give you an idea of kind of the volume of work that's involved in a typical road plan year. So this is the 2020 plan. There's a few roads in here that the select board gave me the go ahead to tentatively bring up from where we had penciled them in from 2021 in case we find ourselves with a late season, a late winter arrival. It might work. Sometimes you can get into deep November before you have to stop work on the road. So there's a couple of streets on here that were recently added in, but the top and the white are reclaim sections. So if you take a look at your CIP matrix, we've got $1.6 million. And previously the CIP had increased the next few years to a higher leveling off point based on some the idea of trying to contract out a good portion of the reclaim work each year, which certainly allows you to flex a little bit more mileage each year, but it does require quite a significant investment in cost. We find about 35 to 40% cost increase for the town out of pocket if we contract out a piece of road as compared to trying to do that work in-house. Of course, on the back end, the trick is to make sure we keep up on the maintenance end of things in town that our DPW crews also do. So it's sort of a balancing act between how much we can actually bite off with our 2 to maybe 3 construction crews each summer and how much of the maintenance work, so line striping, sweeping, catch basin and sewer line clearing, that sort of thing, tree trimming. So we try to get a good handle on that with our work order system and make sure that things are ready to go and queued up, and that allows our construction crews to do their thing. So what this list for 2020 represents is pretty much a perfect year scenario. It's about 30, maybe 32,000 square yards of reclaim. That's about as much as we can handle for a full season. But there's also in the yellow, the next section down, there's a good dozen or so roads that are either collector or main roads that are due for a 10 to 15 year maintenance overlay. So you want to keep your good roads good, as I'm sure you've heard several times before in the past. So we try to keep our roads that see a lot of traffic and benefit the most people. We try to keep those good with a regular overlay cycle. So we shoot for 10 and sometimes they slide all the way to 15, but that's the goal. And then at the bottom, a few of those roads are also streets that were paved or reclaimed and base paved last year, either by the town or by a contractor, that are scheduled for top coat. So in Goffstown, typically we have 4 inches of pavement on most roads. It's 2.5 inches of a base pavement, which has got a heavier aggregate, and it stands up to the weight of the vehicles. And then that's topped with 1.5 inches of a smaller, usually a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 asphalt, aggregate asphalt, which tightens up the voids and prevents a lot of water infiltration, which is what ruins your road base and allows potholes to form and your road to deform prematurely. So this yellow section are those maintenance overlays and top coats of things that were base paved either last year or the year before. And then, I keep doing that to you, sorry. And then the bottom, we have what we lovingly refer to as Band-Aid shims. These are roads that by rights probably should be rebuilt or are close to being in the place where they need to be rebuilt, but we just don't have the time. And we know that for a handful of them anyway, they're too small and affect too few people to warrant bringing right to the top of the list over some of our main roads. So we end up with a Band-Aid shim, which buys us time anywhere between 5 and maybe 8 more years to make a decision about a reclaim project. And you'll see a lot more neighborhood streets in this category, but we are trying to reclaim neighborhood streets too, as you can see from the top of the list. So there you have it. So sort of rebuilds at the top, which of course cost us the most money. It's about, for us in-house, it costs us out of our road plan budget anyway, about $500,000 per mile to reconstruct a road with the reclaim process. And as I mentioned, usually the rule of thumb when you're contracting out, you can guess it's going to be $1 million plus to rebuild a mile of road. So we do save a fair amount by bringing that work in-house. So there's a sort of a overview of kind of how the typical road plan breaks out. In 2021, we are going to focus our reclaim efforts on the Pinardville neighborhoods that we've started just uphill of College Road. We got into Warren Ave last year, and then we'll be finishing Warren Ave to the top this year with Duclos Street. As many people know, the hill side of Pinardville, most every street there needs to be rebuilt. So we'll be marching through that neighborhood. Once we've finished, the Pine Hill and Heald, and I'm probably forgetting about 6 more up there, we will shift over in Pinardville anyway and start working on the Flats area where the sewer department is going to be kickstarting that neighborhood with the Louis and Higgins Street project. So we'll be right behind them for some of the others there. So we try to sprinkle the work around town, but when it comes to some of the neighborhood reclaims, especially in Pinardville, it makes sense to try to finish the neighborhood before you move on with some of those. So I think I mentioned I brought the road plan level here, so I'm both due to my own personal opinions about keeping the reclaim projects in-house if I can, but also looking at the COVID landscape, the lay of the land, I felt it was probably a good idea at this point to let's level off, let's give this a couple of years and see where we can get with 1.6 million in the road plan. To give you an idea of how much of our road network we're taking care of for this 1.6 million, we have approximately 130 centerline miles of road. So most of them are, of course, 2-lane roads. So out of 130 centerline miles, in 2019, our road plan, we accomplished 6% of the roads, of the road square yardage anyway in town was addressed. In 2020, we've got just over 8% of the road network planned. This sounds pretty good. Sounds like a 15 to a 12-year return period, but numbers are double counted because you have top coats that were reclaimed the year before. So really, when you kind of take out some of those roads that we hit 2 years in a row for reclaim purposes, we're looking more in the 4 to 6%, maybe 4 to 5% of the road network each year, which is
Are we losing Adam?
His video dropped out. I think if we just give him 1 minute, it seems like it came back on.
Okay.
Tough night for us technology-wise today.
Yeah, all the gremlins.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. It looks like he's preparing to go to the next slide.
I
Adam,
have
can you
everybody.
hear us?
I can
There
hear
you
you now. I lost everybody with notifications there for a little bit, but looks like we're back. Okay, so that's the basic spiel on the road plan. If anybody has any questions on that, the regular projects.
I'm going to ask a variation of what we asked David and Mike. Some of us are old enough to remember the bad old days when cow paths were probably in better condition than the Goffstown Road, and it goes back a few years. You talked about keeping up, but the balance between doing the work yourself and contracting out. Is this a reasonable schedule to keep up with the infrastructure the road needs?
I think so, and I might have cut out right at the tail end there. Right now, we're on track with about a 20, maybe to 25-year average return period for our roads, which is going to be shorter on some of the main roads and collector roads that get a lot of traffic, and a little bit on the longer end for the neighborhood streets. But that's about the good place to be. If you're managing your network properly, you can keep them in pretty good condition if you're addressing your main roads every 10 years, for example. So I think we're in a good place. The return on investment tends to bend as soon as you get outside of our own ability to maintain and contracting. As I mentioned, you're paying more now for the overhead of the contractor and getting less overall road done for the same amount of money. And as we get, into a situation where other towns tend to look at bonds, maybe, for example, they'll take out a big $3 million bond for roadways, and then they find they have to split it out into 3 or 4 or 5 years anyway, because they can't find any contractor that can do that much work or is willing to do that much work, on side roads, which isn't quite as lucrative for them as a highway, for example. So it is a balancing act, but I think we are in a good place. I don't feel that we're falling behind. Certainly, we're catching up if that helps.
This is a political question for Kelly, I guess. We've seen from time to time that the town, the voters in their infinite wisdom, don't pass the budget that you propose, including the road budget. And when that happens, you fall behind. we'd be creating a CIP schedule that anticipates that sometimes we will not hit this budgetary target and fall behind by building up, getting ahead, or are we going to present it as is, and then when that happens, we'll have to figure out how to solve it after the fact. I think you've got the voters pretty well trained recently, but in the past, if you recall, we've had some negative sentiment, and that put the road maintenance program well behind schedule.
Yeah, I think that Adam could definitely speak to the history of the road plan in regards to where we currently stand when we're looking at things, kind of like how this is mapped out, where we're doing reclaims and overlays and kind of doing our protection of investments of things that we've already worked on. The board has recognized that and has done things like additional funds from unreserved fund balance to kind of help to work us back to a point where we're at a working neutral, if you will. But it's kind of a compounded, complex issue for kind of why we are behind. And this is over the course of years and years. But to your point, the catch up, you know, we would have things in the default budget to kind of get those things still moving, but of course, any budgetary setbacks of that nature would, you know, put us behind again, I guess. Adam or Danielle, feel free to chime in if you have any other input on that.
Kelly, you mentioned the default, and I'm glad you did. A couple of the years that we've had the extra article on for the voters to vote on the additional road plan funds, there's been language to include that in the default budget going forward. So that's helped kind of protect against that situation that we had, you know, maybe 2013, 14. I guess starting back 2012 is when the major cuts came. So we had about 5 years there, 12 through 16 with low funding. So to kind of hedge against that, that clause in the vote has helped. You know, of course, the select board, if we're in dire straits, bottom line budget, they can do what they need to do to meet other needs. But certainly we've done a pretty good chunk of work here since 2016 to really get back into it, and the voters have seen, I think, the results. The one thing that I don't fear, but it's going to happen at some point once you get enough of the main roads and neighborhood streets with a lot of voters completed, there starts to become maybe a less of a push as the neighborhoods that they live on are completed. So we really need to probably, as time goes on, up our sales pitch to, you know, make sure that they remember, you know, somebody else has got a street that looked just like yours did 5 years ago.
Just leave a portion of every street unrepaired so they see what happens.
No, and I certainly think this comes into play when we get into the nitty gritty of this during budget season, is when you look at the cost of a reclaim versus the cost of an overlay, there's quite a significant difference. So if we continuously push those things off, and then those costs.
Well, all we do as a committee is recommend a capital improvement.
Kind of what we're trying to overcome.
So I say our job is to recommend the schedule. It's up to the political forces and ultimately the voters to decide what to adopt. But we have to do this work to see what we need, how it should be done. That's what I think, Adam.
Jim, this is Ellen. Can I ask a question?
I can't stop you, yes.
Okay, sure you can. Adam, I want to thank you. I had emailed you a while back with some concerns and you responded very nicely to me. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Did I understand you to say that 2021 is scheduled to be doing pretty much only the neighborhoods in Pinardville?
No, what we do want to do, you know, maybe call it the 1 and 1A section of the road plan is to continue on in the neighborhood where we are. So the Pine Hill, Holly Heald, I think, I don't have it right in front of me, but we don't want to stop the progress we've made in that neighborhood or pick up in, for lack of a better term, leave
Right.
town on those folks. So that's sort of the top priorities are to continue on in that neighborhood.
Okay. Did I hear you say you were dovetailing your road work with what the sewer commission is doing?
We
Okay.
do. East Union's a great example this year, even though it was sort of we got there in a backwards way since their trench ended up bigger than they expected and their patch was going to be larger. And then the water department came in at sort of the 11th hour and decided they wanted to do their portion if we could all work together and make it happen. And at that point, it just made financial sense to jump in. But normally we try to signal to both and they do the same. Hey, we're looking 3 or 4 years out. Here's our thoughts. And in this case, we'll be following right in with sewer in the Rochambeau area, Bernardville, as
Right.
Higgins and Louis.
Okay. At what point do you think you'll have the 21 road plan, and how can a person obtain a copy of that?
So what I'd like to do, as I mentioned, the longer term road plan, I'd like to try to get that at least tentatively put together so we can have our stakeholder meeting, which is a public meeting. We'll make an advertisement at the select board probably with that. And then, barring anything that comes out at that stakeholder meeting, which makes us shift gears for our 2021 list, we'll bring that to the select board. Normally what I'll do is bring the board as part of the budget process, a tentative list, at least a framework anyhow, to kind of give some beef to the numbers that we're requesting for the budget. And then we sort of have to sit on our hands for a couple months. And when the budget passes, we know where everything's shaken out. And then we come to the board for a final vote.
Okay, thank you.
Budget process.
I would encourage anybody listening, and certainly our committee and the select board people, drive the roads, the neighborhood roads in Bernardville. I went and did so, and some of them are, it's been rare that I've ever seen roads in as bad a condition as some of those neighborhood roads are. You can't go more than 15, 20 miles an hour on some of them without feeling like your fillings and your teeth are going to fall out. And they are so broken up, so patched. I would say they're even hazardous to walk on, or certainly kids can't ride their bikes on the neighborhood roads. Some of them are that bad. So I would encourage us to really support the work that needs to be done over there. And that's my spiel.
Okay, thank you. With that encouragement.
And I missed the end of that, Jim. Oh, sorry.
I'm not hearing it, so tell us what else.
Sounds like Jim's ready to move on, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then next up for me, if you look on CIP line 162, traffic signal upgrades. So this is a multi-year project that was started. We had the Daniel Plummer intersection was worked on last year, including new signal heads, new cabinet components, pulled some new lines for the sensors. That project continues. So we've got 4 years in a row left scheduled. 2021, we're planning this intersection here at the former Shaw's at Fun City Trampoline Park Plaza. That's a $95,000 project. The majority of that project cost goes towards the cost of the cabinet itself and all the components, all the electronics in the cabinet, and then the base comes out to about $30,000. And then there'll be new signal heads with reflective backings, with the yellow borders that go around them, new LED fixtures that hopefully use less electricity than some of the older ones we have. New pedestrian push button assemblies at this intersection, and then there's a few $1,000s for the engineering that's required to go along with that. Traffic control is also a fairly significant chunk of the budget for each of these, just because when you take a signal down, sometimes you'll need police officers and flaggers, sometimes just officers, sometimes just flaggers, but it does eat up a budget fairly quickly. So 2021, we've got the Shaw's Plaza. 2022 is the Joffrey Street Rite Aid Plaza intersection. 23 is the Hannaford signal, and 2024, the last year that we've got on there right now, Pinard Street. So multi-year project. Pretty important, though. I think we had a light out at maybe 2 out of 3 intersections here just this year. So they do fail. It is time to put some investment back into them. Next project coming up on CIP line 163 is the Mural Road bridge repairs. So Mural Road happened to be on our road plan list, and the bridge itself got bumped out of the 2020 budget last year as part of the process. It's a timber deck, timber guardrail bridge. It is not on the municipal red list. It's also not on the municipal state aid program list by the DOT. The CIP amount is $27,000. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was talking about the Bog Road Bridge just got bumped out of the project. The Merrill Road Bridge is in the 2020 budget. We haven't done the design yet, but on tap is replacement of the decking. A good chunk of this project is all in the guardrail. As you can see, it's pretty substandard anyway. Timber's tough right from when it's brand new to meet traffic safety standards, but certainly as it ages, and the posts are all timber as well. As they age, less structurally sound. The height of these has always been pretty low, and got just an inch and a half lower as we shimmed the roadway. So that's going to have to come up anyway. And some other drainage issues around the bridge, but also the bridge scuppers are, I think, in a bad spot for the long-term health of the concrete abutments. So they're going to do a little bit of work on that too, I believe. So that is one of our 18 locally managed, maintained bridges here in town. Some of those are actually big metal culverts, but they're large enough that they're classified as bridges, so we actually have 18. So this is identified as a $132,000 construction portion for bumped into 2021. The design was estimated at $27,000 for that. This is all came out of a 2013 bridge assessment that we had paid Quantum Consulting to do. They had taken a look at a number of the bridges in town, and some of them had already been accomplished. Were on that list, and this is another one that was there.
I have a question on that, Adam. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Adam?
I can. It a little broken up on my end, though.
Okay. I think this is one of the bridges back when most of you don't remember, Don Hambridge was the Public Works Director and was building wooden bridges or encouraging them because he thought they had greater longevity or lower maintenance costs. Has that been borne out, do you know?
I don't. I believe, let's see, this is a 1993 construction. We certainly haven't spent a lot of money on it since then, but I don't know what the original sales pitch was to say if we met the targets on that. 27 years old now, left alone to its own devices. It's certainly not crumbling. We'd have to do some deck work and some guardrail spruce ups, but when you start to look at some of the other bridge projects, it's a smaller bridge, of course. But it's certainly not a overly expensive project when it's all said and done.
Maybe we just like the idea of wood. Are there any questions by anybody? I'm not going to let Matt walk through the rest of it. Why don't we let him do that, and then we can ask questions in general. Adam?
Sounds good to me. Okay. Next up, then, we've got line 164, the Bog Road bridges. We have 2 bridges on Bog Road, and these were the bridges that were deferred from from this current year, but in the budget process last year, due to the cost. We had pegged an estimate of $165,000 for our engineers' estimates for the two bridges themselves. They're both similar construction, substandard guardrail on both, but particularly on the southernmost of the two bridges. They're about a quarter mile from each other, just on the town side of Lesnick Road. This is the closest bridge to the town line. So both bridges need to be, the deck needs to be exposed, any failed concrete and exposed rebar removed, repaired, and then new caps placed. The brush curbs, which is what the guardrail sits on here, this raised portion of concrete, usually needs some pretty substantial repair. Where the road meets the concrete tends to be the first place that the salt starts to take action. And the way concrete normally fails is you get salt intrusion via some of the existing cracks or penetration points. In this case, there's large anchor bolts where the guardrails plates mount. And between that and the seam where the road meets these brush curbs tend to let water in. That salt water corrodes the reinforcing steel, which can expand, I think, like 60 times when it corrodes. So as it corrodes, it pops the concrete right off. And as soon as that bond is broken between the reinforcing steel and the concrete, the bridge deck loses all its ability to withstand a heavy load. So certainly a slower process. These don't fail overnight, but they are beyond time where we should be taking a look at them. So pretty standard compared to some of the bridge decks that we've replaced recently. A couple on the Pleasant Street project a few years back, one on Parker Station Road, two of the culverts on the Shirley Hill project, very similar. Strip the road, jackhammer out the broken concrete, reform, recast, and then pay the guardrail contractors to come in and set all the guardrails with the proper safety wraps. So there's bridge number one. Here's bridge number two, a little longer guardrail. It's got some heavier beam supports, but don't meet current standard for crash safety. And it looks like this one's been dinged here on the approach side as well. And there's kind of what they look like from the side. So sometimes you don't know until you get the traveled way, the pavement off, and expose the failed concrete. How bad it really is on Shirley Hill. One of the decks was, by the time the failed concrete was removed, you could see through to the water below. The other was still pretty thick, about 6-7 inches thick in the worst part. So a little bit of a crapshoot once you get the asphalt off to see what's happening. But the plan would be for both of these to be done, one right after another. You can't do them both because we've got some houses in between. So it'd just be one, and then while everybody's used to the detour, move down the street and do the second one. And as I mentioned, most of the cost of both of these is wrapped up into the guardrail part of the project. So that's line 164. Next up, 165. I've got, this should make some folks relatively happy, I think. So here's a Catamount intersection, CIP line 165. I don't have a slide for that one. It's listed in there as a $33,000 design for 2021, and $430,000 construction project in a couple of years. This project was initially slated for a consultant design to come in and totally realign the Catamount to back road intersection, and then pay a contractor to do the entire project, both the intersection itself, and then that money also included reclaim of Catamount Road. Normally, we don't put roadway sections in the CIP outside of the road plan article or outside of the road plan line. So I probably was going to reduce that amount this year, but I didn't, before I had to submit CIP, I didn't have time to talk with the engineering staff and actually take a look at this proposed project. Now that I have met with them on site, we've got a back of the napkin idea of what we want to do over here. We're gonna pull this line all together out of CIP. We're going to design in-house. We feel we can do an in-house design without too much trouble, and include the intersection itself as part of the road plan. Likely either 21 or 22, and actually bump up the timeline as well. So should be a fairly significant savings overall, but I think just bringing the design in-house and the construction of the intersection in-house, we'll be able to drop it off the CIP as a separate project.
Adam, is that a general redesign of the intersection or just an improvement of the road itself?
Originally, the thought was going to be to actually involve some taking. So some of the cost of that 2023 was an estimated right-of-way acquisition. As you come out of Catamount looking to the right, there's a embankment there that if you keep the road where it is, you have a hard time seeing up over that little rise that as you look right. But if you shift to the east a little bit and then come up and then bring the back road up a little bit, you alleviate the need to take back that embankment at all. You have plenty of sight line. So that removes the need for any kind of a taking for right-of-way acquisition and the cost associated with that, of course, but also some of the complexity of the design. So there's no retaining wall that's needed. You know, that if anybody's familiar with the retaining wall on College Road that a few years ago we had to replace as part of that project, it get expensive quick. I think that was a $50,000 wall on College Road. So we would have needed something at least that big, if not bigger, for Catamount. But just with making a few tweaks to the idea of where the two roads intersect and the willingness to change some of the grade on the back road as well in that spot takes away that need and significantly eases the design concerns there. So then let's see, the only other item on here for 21 is $25,000 for a Grassmere traffic study. This project is line 166. This has been here for a couple years. It doesn't seem to rise to the top. Got a deferrable priority, so that probably doesn't help. But it's you know, there's no dire need right now, short of the little spate of accidents we had at the bottom of Cheeril Hill when everything got repaved and people were driving faster than usual. This project is designed to look at 5 intersections from Locust all the way to Cheeril Hill. So Tibbetts, Locust, Cheeril, escaping me at this point. What else is in there? But basically all the way from Locust to Cheeril, everything on Center Street. So traffic study. Hopefully we can work with the Planning Commission to see what information they've already got, crash data from the police department. But the idea was spend a little bit of money, look at these, see if there's been significant increases in the level of traffic, and then the decreasing level of services intersections that we might be able to improve. But there's not a whole lot of real estate to work with at any of those, so there's only so much that can be done without making for a real expensive project, and kind of hard to get behind any major changes over on Center Street. So you can see why that's been kicked here for a couple of years in a row. But good planning. Like to continue, as we can, looking at intersections where we may have trouble already or may be foreseeing trouble, and keep this in there hopefully this year, and at least we'll have a starting point for future year discussions. Then just to kind of give a quick rundown of what else we've got on CIP for the out years. Line 167, we have one of those culverts that's large enough to be considered a bridge right on Center Street, right next to Locust. That's an 18-foot multi-plate metal culvert that it's been identified by us as those multi-plate corrugated steel culverts can fail pretty quickly once they start to deteriorate. This one is still safe, but the DOT has sort of flagged this as getting near the end of its life. We have submitted and received acceptance for that bridge to be included in the state's 10-year plan as part of the state aid bridge program. So those kind of go hand in hand, but the state aid bridge program allows you to offset some of the costs of that construction project.
Being funded, Adam, is that a reasonable expectation, or is that one of those funds that gets deferred at the state level?
I think since we don't have, as a town, we don't have anything else right now in the list. We're trying to get 2 more on there, but right now it's the only project we've got. So that helps. It's a pretty major road in town, and it's got some evacuation route importance, and comes up when we do our hazard mitigation plan in town as well. So I think it's in pretty good shape, but of course with the state, you do never know. But I think we're where we are. I believe they proposed moving it from 2025 into the 2023 state budget. And if they do that, we could construct it anytime after that. But it might be able to even be moved up if that happens once it receives governor approval. Good deal for the town because it's an 80-20, I believe, is the current split for state aid projects. So there is offsetting revenue. If you look down on line 174, both on the design end, yes, there you go. 80% of the design cost is $125,600 in revenue from the state. And then 2025 in the construction year, the state aid would fund $696,000 of that. So pretty significant and a great program if you can get it. Usually they have a pretty long waiting list, and we've been in queue here for a couple of years. So coming up on that. So we definitely like to keep that on track since most of it's going to be funded by the state. And then the last 2 that rounded out are we call them sister bridges, Cheeril Hill Road and East Dunbarton Road. They both are the same. I think US Bridges is the name of the company, I believe, that originally designed them. And they are both, they had some minor repairs a couple years ago, and we've asked the state to include them on their long range funding for deck replacements. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if we're not seeing them yet for the 2023 budget, it's probably unlikely to happen, but it's not finalized yet. So we'll keep the press on there. You might see those 2 bridges have to slide to the right. But they received most of the safety related work with guardrails and expansion joints and a few other welding repairs a couple years ago that added some much needed life to them. So I'm not too worried about those 2 if we have to push them to the right, maybe at next year's CIP. And that rounds out my project list.
Adam, as on bridges, we hear about the states, I guess they call it the red list or the bad boy bridges. Are any of ours on that, or are you on a more of a
We're on the mostly good boy list. We do have one on the bad boy list. I'm glad you asked. The Henry Bridge Road, the large bridge over the Piscataquag, is currently on the red list, but I expect that after their next inspection, we can get that taken off the red list based on the construction work that was done as part of the 2020 CIP program. We had some significant repairs to the abutments themselves, a lot of repointing there, but primarily the bridge seats, which are the concrete pedestals that the steel members of the main carrying beams of the bridge rest upon. Those were pretty well disintegrated. They actually, the company that did the work, the contractor, said they hadn't seen bridge seats that bad before. So it's an interesting design, the way the superstructure there, the arches actually are made of steel that channels water right to the support bearings of the bridge. So they're really, it was a kind of a kit bridge at the time, and I think it was mainly designed for southern states that don't see snow and ice, because they get packed with snow in the winter and then it melts and runs right down the steel directly to the concrete that holds the bridge up, and just over time they wear right out. So we've as part of that project, before that project, but as part of the project, we try to divert the water coming down those, but we've actually probably got some more MacGyver type repairs coming up to divert water even more so from the new bridge seats. But the work they did was pretty extensive. They jacked the whole bridge up. It wasn't much. It was only about a 1/4 inch for the project, just enough to get the old stuff out and slip in the new bearings and form up concrete. So we were able to keep traffic over it throughout the repair, but it was over the end of the winter and into the spring that they were actually working down there. So I expect when the state comes back to re-inspect the substructure, they will note that we've made the repairs and bring that back out of the red list. So hopefully with their inspections this year, we don't add any others back in. I don't anticipate that. So we should be back fully on the good boy list after this inspection this summer.
Okay. You probably have a bit different term for that, but works.
Easy to remember.
Ellen or Kelly, do you have any questions on any of these items that Adam reviewed?
Ellen's fine.
Kelly?
I'm fine.
Adam, do you, I do have a question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. Adam, do you know, is there any anticipated increase to back to the bridge fund or the road fund? I doubt this year, but.
I know it was mentioned at the select board meeting, but if anybody missed that one the other night, the state has indicated they expect our highway block grant funding to be reduced. The end result this year to be down about 7.5%, which for us I think is around $40,000 maybe. So this year, yes, a tiny bit of reduction in the highway block grant funding. They have not, at least as of Monday anyway, signaled any further reductions in the future year budgets. I, kind of reading the tea leaves, the last time we had a economic downturn, the government, one of the things they try to do is put a lot of money in infrastructure because it gets put to good use really quickly and puts a lot of people at work and gets money back into the economy. So I have a feeling we'll see some stimulus type projects, shovel ready stuff is going to be helpful. So it's good that we've got the engineering staff. If we get any signals that there's going to be an increase of local infrastructure funding, we can kind of hop to and meet the need. But nothing that I've seen anyways indicated anything concrete.
Okay, thanks.
That's an interesting observation about last time. There's federal aid or federal funding for the project before. Not sure we're going to see that here based on the political wind, but we can always hope. Okay, what else, Adam? Yeah, for us. Is that it for the? Is that it on?
That's all I've got.
Oh, we're doing so well. Danielle, is there anything else that we need Adam on?
That's it for tonight. If the committee doesn't have any other questions.
Okay. Well, that was an excellent presentation from both Public Works and Sewer. We appreciate the work you put into it. We like looking at pictures, so thank you for putting them up for us.
I thought you might like those.
Ellen,
thank you for having me.
Do you have anything else?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Danielle, tell us what we have coming up next so we can look forward to it eagerly.
So next week, you have a meeting on Thursday as well. So typically we have a gap in between meetings, but the way the schedule worked out with a 5-week month in July, there is a meeting scheduled on August 6th. That would be the deliberative session or any callbacks if the committee feels that they need to bring any of the presenters back at that time.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. We offered along the way for people to come back if they had more information. Do you anticipate any?
I do not anticipate any additional information at this time. I've been working with each of the presenters after they came forward and adjusted the matrix for any minor changes that they had mentioned during their presentations, but there's been no new information coming forth.
Because there were a few, right? The library, maybe one,
And Parks and Rec.
So we were waiting for some, maybe more information. You don't expect that to be in by next week?
No, I don't expect that to be in by next week for either of those projects. Both the Parks project and the library are some of the largest projects we've had, and I haven't heard from either of the department heads that they've received the necessary information.
Okay, so we'll go with what we have. Ellen and Kelly, are there any presenters or departments that you'd like to invite back to ask more questions on?
Overall, I would just like the clarifications from Parks and Rec about the changes to that project. I think, Danielle, is it worth sort of a Cliff Notes version of what's changed? Or do you think, I mean, I have no, I don't see anything incredibly significant.
I don't know that there is. A lot of the changes were very minor. You know, the school had a couple projects that they had completed, so they moved those. Adam told us tonight that they're looking to pull Catamount, so I will confirm with him tomorrow if he wants that removed from the matrix for final consideration. But for the most part, other than, you know, fixing the technical error that I found with the sewer calculation in the matrix and a few other minor changes, there hasn't been a ton switched around this year. It's been a pretty quiet year as far as the CIP projects for the details that the committee has heard has remained relatively the same to what the group submitted.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So Jim, for me, it would just be the large Parks and Rec project. I serve on the Library Board of Trustees as well as the Select Board rep, and I have not heard that we've gotten any update. I know we were reconfiguring with them to see what the next steps for phases were, because they got pushed out for COVID as well with the design architect. So I don't believe that one has updates, but Danielle, if you could check on that too, that would be great.
Yeah, I can definitely reach out to both the library director and the Parks and Rec director tomorrow to see if either of them have more information. And does the committee want me to have Rick try to schedule, see if he's available to come in Thursday, the 6th?
Only, my view, only if he has additional information. We
Okay.
don't need to be here. You know, we're a planning committee. We can deal with the information we have. We know that it's not the final word, and some of these projects we'll see again next year anyway. So I think it's fair for us to say, no, we've gone as far as we can go in the time that we've allotted, and if the departments have changes they want to make later, they can bring that to the select board or the school board on the school side, but they're not precluded from doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are bound a little bit by our self-imposed schedule, but we really have to get this process done in the summer so the budgetary wheels can start turning. I think it's fair for us to say, well, this is all we can do. You know, unless either Rick or the library have some substantial new information, or any of the other departments for that matter, but I'm not hearing that from Danielle, so I think we'll go with what we have.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I definitely agree with that. Perhaps we could put Parks and Rec towards the end of our deliberative workshop day. I would really like clarification on approving a $400,000 project that has some significant questions to what's entailed. So for that one, I really would like the library. The problem is they don't have the design concept, so that one's a little bit more difficult. But it's also not an immediate CIP need. So, in my personal opinion, I'd prefer to have the Parks and Rec what their plan is for the next few years before we approve that one.
Excuse me. I believe there were also questions about the proposal that Rick had shown on the pools and the replacement of the pool. There were many outstanding issues on that.
Yeah, my impression was it's not sufficiently cooked to really, do much more with it until he comes back with more. And I understand that. And then, as Ellen pointed out, there's a political component to the location. There's other factors that will be considered that may be outside of our jurisdiction. So I think we just treat that with proposal of incomplete.
Yeah,
and
that one I did have in my notes that they were pushing out to 2023. So maybe if we could just confirm that it's not in this CIP year, would that be helpful, Jim?
Say it again.
I had in my notes that they were anticipating to push it out to 2023.
Mhm.
So could we perhaps just get confirmation on the years of request? Would that be helpful, kind of
Yeah,
in the interim?
We can do a couple of things when you have a project like that. One is to put it back. The two is really just a footnote to explain it, that it's a placeholder, or it's not a complete project, and will require more review. If it's not, then the next following year, 2021, we can't do that. But anything after that, we can keep it as more of a placeholder, because we'll be coming back to it next year anyways, and I hope with this thing. Either one, all three of those are options. We can discuss those next week. One of our goals is to balance out tax impact overall. And one of the things we left when, particularly came up with the school proposals is, are there projects that should be shifted just from a time standpoint to even out the tax burden? That's something we can look at when we see the revised, the proposed matrix.
Jim?
We can address when we bring it back.
Jim, it's Ellen.
Yeah?
Okay, I can be heard. I had a discussion with Scott Gross, the business office, about our CIP proposal and the discussion when we made our presentation. And I have some information. I think that when we have the discussion of trying to balance out the annual totals for each year, that I feel comfortable bringing forward if we need to at that time for the school district.
Okay. Thank you. Danielle, is it realistic for us to be able to complete our analysis in the next meeting? We made that a goal?
Yes, I believe that would make sense. I plan to send out the revised matrix at the end of this week to ensure that the committee has the most up-to-date version. So you can, when you're considering the years and, the out years for tax impact, that'll all be on the matrix. So I will definitely get in touch with Rick and Diane about their projects to see if they have any new information. And I will be in touch with the chair if there is information that we think we need additional presenters at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So let's make that a goal. If you can take a look at things, if we don't get there, we have additional meetings we can hold. But if we can finish it, that would be delightful. And let's see how far we get. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about this evening? Not seeing any. Danielle, I wonder if you can, we tried this before, but maybe make another effort for us to work on some of our technology, maybe when not before the meeting when I'm starting to panic because nothing works. But I'll let you know if we can try to set up another test time. There must be an answer to our challenges other than refill my fountain pen. So, okay. Kelly, will you make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir. Make a motion to adjourn.
And Ellen, will you second it?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. It's a pretty lengthy.
Aye.
Aye.
We're gonna assume that was a roll call vote. Thank you, and be well next week. Danielle, I'll be in touch with you on setting up a time.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you all. Be well.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.